Yay! Hello and welcome to this sacred conversation. I am Abiola Abrams, and this is all a part of the virtual retreat launch series for my Secrets of the Ancestors Oracle deck. And I'm here with one of my favorite creators. This is Goddess Lorriane Anderson. Hello, Goddess Lorriane.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I am great. Let me just show them this and just brag on you a little bit. I have my deck open because I was actually using it. So she is the creator of the Earthcraft Oracle deck, in addition to a lot of different work. She's a prolific creator. How do you describe what you do? Let's hear you describe the magic that you make in the world.
Um, the most, the easiest material world answer is that I'm a writer. I'm an Oracle deck writer and a book writer. And I focus a lot on just working with the earth and working with the seasons, to the extent of that, the signs as well, for spiritual growth and transformation. I believe that everything is a teacher, particularly everything that you encounter in the day, and in the world can teach you something, either if it's small or large. And my work is just trying to channel that energy, channel Mother Nature's goodness into a way that you can use it, and a tool that you can use again and again and again, and can support you in your spiritual journey.
Yes, 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 yes. Amen to that. I love all of the things that you're doing right now. In particular, I was just talking to you right before we came on about the almanac and all of that. How do you how does spirit give you the guidance of what is coming next? Like how do you know like what is the next thing to do?
Oh, what a loaded question. Because I have periods where I want to do something and I'm just like, okay, I want to do this. I know I want to do this. I got to find a name. I got to find a subject. I got to find a title, all those things. And I really struggle with that. Like I'm beating
Mhm.
myself up trying to figure out what to do. And I feel like spirit is always like, girl, you just need to chill. Like the answer is coming. You just need to relax. Um, and then, and then I'll try my best to do that. And then the answer will come. And as a funny story, just the other night, Sunday night, I woke up in the middle of the night, 4 o'clock in the morning, and literally wrote an entire outline for a new Oracle deck I'm going to be working on. um I wanted it to be something completely different, and spirit was like, absolutely not, that's not what you're going to be doing. And it just, I kind of just channeled all of this in the middle of the night, and I feel like that's probably how my ideas come 99% of the time. I want to do something, spirit says no, and it gives me something else instead when I'm receptive enough to receive it.
I am laughing because I relate to that so much where we have like what we think our plan is going to be and then it's like nope. That's not it. Here's this other thing. Boop, here's the other thing that you're going to be working on. I felt like today with you, I very much felt like in alignment, and you confirmed for me why, but I felt like okay, for some reason with Goddess Lorriane, we need to be talking about grief. And let me share with you why. With the Secrets of the Ancestors Oracle deck, so many people have been sharing with me, their different relationships with their ancestors at different stages. And a lot of folks are in deep, deep, deep stages of grief and dealing with grief. It could be from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it could be from a loss that they've experienced now. But inevitably, when people start thinking about the ancestors, they think about their ancestors who were way back. And then they also start thinking about their ancestors who they knew and ancestors who were recent losses. Why was it that spirit directed me that you should be talking to us about grief? You don't have a book about grief specifically. You don't have any work ostensibly that's around grief. Why? And I didn't, and here's a funny thing too. Let me just tell the audience. I didn't contact my sister and say, hey, can you talk about grief? I said, no, okay, she's talking about grief. Let's put it on, put it on there. So why was that the directive I was given?
Because I have been doing grief work for the past year, maybe year and a half. It was just something that I felt really moved to do. And I'm very lucky that my therapist is into all the woo woo things. She does ancestral work. In fact, she just wrote a wonderful book on ancestral work, which is coming through Hay House. So I'm really excited about that. I
What
hope you can have her on
I
later.
would love to. Yes.
But you know, she really understands ancestral work and just energy work. We can talk about all the things, and in our work we started talking about grief, and I realized that I just had so much grief that I had been holding on to, that I hadn't given a voice to. And so this past year and a half, a lot of my personal work has been around grief. So I'm kind of just at the tail end of that, right? I'm kind of just at the point where I've really released a lot of that. And I feel like the timing was just spirit really directing you to what I was already going through. You know, this is what I've been in the midst of. So I think I have a lot of insights around grief. And I think my spirit just talked to your spirit and said, hey, you
Mhm.
know, this is the conversation we need to have. But outside of me, I think grief is a subject that doesn't get talked about enough. I think we grieve so many things, even just with me talking about the oracle deck, right? And what I wanted to create. I'm not going to create that, and I also have to grieve that, right? It may not be what I needed, but it was something that I wanted to do, and having to let go of that, there is a certain amount of grief that comes along with that, not just with the grief of a physical person. We were talking about COVID, and, you know, just kind of the energy around COVID and the grief that's associated with that, whether you knew someone who lost someone, but I mean, who didn't? Everyone knows someone either directly or indirectly who lost someone during the pandemic. And it's just really a subject that I think is going to expand more in the next couple of years as people start to get more comfortable with grief. And we're just going to start it here, right? We're just going to start that energy here. I feel like spirit just tasked us with this pathway to talk about this more openly and honestly, and from a loving place.
Yes. Yes, very much so. I think that, because it's a conversation that makes people uncomfortable, and then because we're uncomfortable with our own grief
Right.
as well. And so oftentimes we want things to we want to brush it off. Like, if, for example, if you lose a job or opportunity, like I remember, I gotten fired from a job. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to tell people I got fired. I didn't want to, like, you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to, I didn't want to seem like I was stupid, or I didn't want to be judged or whatever. So we brush off that kind of grief. And then when it's, loss of a person, oftentimes people will make you feel like the grief has to run on a certain track. I remember someone who I was in a relationship with. My aunt had died in December, and this person asking in February, him saying, "Oh, well, like, was I still not over it from December to February?" And so we will often, it's a form of tyranny, really, and abuse, of either self-abuse, if you're the person who's, saying to yourself, like, "Oh, I should be over this," or abuse of others, if you feel like, okay, people are saying to you, "Well, you still not over that? You still dealing with that?"
Yeah, for sure. And I think you really spoke to something critical, because it's almost like we can't even begin to have this conversation around grief until we have the conversation about individuality, and that everyone, you know, does things in their own way. For some, there are some people who genuinely can get over things, and it's great if you are one of those people, but a lot of people can't. You know, a lot of people don't have the ability to just turn an emotion off or to just park it over in the corner. It just like depression, right? Like, no one wants to be depressed. No one wants to have to sit in that dark place and feel like they can't get things done. But for some people, it really is just genuinely something that they can't work through, at least maybe not on their own. And you need to have that time and space to let people work on things in a time that's right for them. So before we can even get to the point of letting people have their space and grief, we've got to get to the point to where we just got to let people have their space, right? Let people do things in the time and the way that's best for them, as long as it's not hurting anyone physically or even mentally or spiritually. Why can't I have all the time that I need to grieve?
Yeah.
But also, I think there are some things that you never really truly stop grieving, right? There are some things that you never really truly let go of. I think of, for example, when my grandparents died, my mom's parents, and, you know, and this was years ago, and she's still grieving now. You know, there are things that are so deeply embedded in your spirit to where I don't know that you ever will be over it. And I think that's
Right.
perfectly okay. Grief comes in waves. Sometimes it'll hit you out of the blue. Sometimes, today is a great day.
Yeah.
Why can't that be okay? Why does it have to have a finish line? Why does it have to have a deadline on it? Grief is like feelings don't have an end date. And we've got to learn how to move past that, I think.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Grief is not a linear thing, that, it's love that was being applied to something. And so where does that love go when the thing is not there? The person, the place, the opportunity, the whatever it is that you're grieving. The love still exists. That love is still there. And so allowing yourself to feel it and feel it deeply is the biggest gift that you can give to yourself, because otherwise you're trying to numb, trying to avoid, trying to, whatever it is. And all of that is out of alignment. That's how we create, addictive situations, or, feel out of tune with ourselves and all of those sorts of things. So I know that there is a grief oil that you have that is in your most recent book. Talk about what this grief oil is and share with us what the ingredients are.
So, the reason why I love making like ritual apothecary type products is because these are things we use every day, right? We use
Yes.
moisturizers and creams and lotions and shampoos and things like that every day. And I think a lot of people kind of have this feeling that you're going to do something, you're going to do like an energy clearing, and then all of a sudden everything's going to be fine and perfect, and you're going to have this light switch moment. And it doesn't really happen that way, right? It takes consistent effort of really examining what you need to work on, confronting what you need to work on. And if you can, some days you're going to do it to where you can really approach a lot and you might cry for an hour. But I think it's more realistic to believe that there's going to be little moments throughout the day where you just feel like you give yourself 5 minutes, intentionally set aside these 5 minutes to kind of process whatever you're feeling. In this case, it's grief. And allow yourself that so that you can go on throughout your day. You made space for it, and now it's not like nagging at you throughout the day. So the grief body and ritual oil is really just a body oil. It's a body oil where you would use as any other moisturizer to do exactly that in the morning or in the afternoon after you take your shower. Take a few minutes to massage it into your skin. Give yourself time to say something like, okay, this is my space to grieve. I want to take this time to just acknowledge the people that I lost, the opportunities I've lost. I want to sit with this energy for a little bit. That's processing grief, in my opinion. And it's very simple to make. All you need is a cup of vegetable oil or carrier oil. Personally, I like jojoba oil.
Mhm.
Add 1 tablespoon of pomegranate oil, which is great. Add a little pinch of dried marjoram, a little pinch of thyme, and then you're going to add an essential oil blend, which is going to be 18 drops cypress essential oil, 9 drops marjoram essential oil, and then mix that all up in a pretty bottle if you want, or a regular bottle, whatever bottle you
Mhm.
have, and just keep it wherever you keep your toiletries and things like that, and slather it on throughout the day.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Is there anything else that you want to recommend to people regarding dealing with grief before we go? I feel like this conversation was it felt like it was like a rushed no, let me correct that. It felt like it had the potential to be a rushed conversation, but we touched on so many points on grief in such a short period of time. I feel like it was such a necessary conversation. Is there anything else you want to share about grief before we go?
I just want to share, I'll share a technique that I have learned in my therapy, that I've learned from my therapist. It's just, if grief hits you, if you can take a minute to just journal about it, like write it down. You don't even have to process it. Just give yourself some space to put it there, and then go back later. You don't necessarily have to be arrested by an emotion when it comes along. You can always talk to your grief, also talk to your
Yeah.
feelings. Like, I know we don't talk about things like that, but there's nothing crazy about it. Just say to your feelings right now, now it's not a good time. Let me just park this for a second, and I'll
Mm.
come back to you later. And as long as you go back later and actually address it, I think grief will be a lot easier to manage. It's only overwhelming when it kind of hits you out of the blue and you don't know what to do with it. But if you have a plan beforehand, I think you will be very successful in managing your grief. And don't be afraid of it. I think it's more devastating if you try and avoid it than it is to just let your monsters be your friends for a little bit of time. They want some love too, is really what it is.
Yeah.
All your bad feelings, they're just little children inside you looking for love. So just show them a little space.
I love that you said let your show your monsters some love. I just that's really beautiful. I was looking to see there was a shadow card that I had pulled in the conversation right before this one, but I think I put it back in the deck that felt like it's just so appropriate for this. Let your monsters, let your shadows, let them know that they are loved. Show them love. Show your grief love. Beautiful, beautiful, sis. Oh my gosh. So I want to invite you to sometime in the next few weeks, because I have a program starting named the Priestesshood, and I would love for you to come and teach something, because this was just so amazing but so brief. So, let people know where to find you and what they should get next, because you have so much going on. What should people get next from you?
Okay, I have lots of things going on. First of
Yeah.
all, yes, I would love to come and teach with you. Absolutely. You
Yay.
can find me on Spirit Element. All of my handles are Spirit Element, and my website is spiritelement.co. I have a plethora of goodies to choose from, but my next oracle deck that's coming out is called Seasons of the Witch Letha Oracle, which is such a beautiful deck because it's all about finding light and joy and abundance and success. It's a very happy deck. And then not too long after that, my second book is coming out called The Moon
Yay.
Apothecary, and you'll get tons of recipes like the one I just shared, but all based off of the moon. I'm almost a little sad that it didn't come out before this big eclipse, because there is a whole section on eclipse energy. But not to worry, there are several eclipses throughout the year, so you'll definitely find a way to use it. So if you work with moon energy at all, this is absolutely perfect. There are recipes and rituals for each moon phase, the solar eclipse, the lunar eclipse, and the blue moon.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. This is totally not announced. So anyone who's listening, this is not announced. I'm just talking to my sister for a minute. I have a moon deck that I'm in the works with that's coming out in the future. So my moon deck will be cousins with your book. So we'll talk about that in the future.
Yeah, oh my God.
All right. So this has been awesome. Thank you, sis, for coming to hang with me. Have a beautiful rest of the day, everyone. Check out Goddess Lorriane and her deck that she said to go get in her book. But here is also, you can get the Earthcraft Oracle deck, which is also available now. Thank you, sis. Have a beautiful day. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody, for watching. See you in the next circle.